All right, everybody, this is Josh and Blake with Blue Edge Energy doing a quick informational video given everything we've been through over the last 2 weeks. And we're going to cover some explanation on the uniqueness of the matter at hand, provide an update on what has happened and how it's impacted our clients, and how can we learn more on this front. So we're going to kind of jump into it with the expert himself, Mr. Blake here. And given your decades of experience in the industry, um, and you look at what's happened over the last couple of weeks, have you ever dealt with something like this before? And is this situation unique from your perspective?
Well, first off, good morning from Blue Mounds, Wisconsin, where the lights are on and the heat is keeping us nice and warm, unlike other parts of the country this morning. To answer your question, I mean, this has been a what we call a black swan, a rare event. At least we hope it's rare. We're hoping that climate change does not make this a regular event. But the fact of the matter is that we have not seen a polar vortex of this depth, breadth, and duration. And it's really the duration that's been the problem. We certainly have not seen, at least in our part of the country, have not seen record cold. But it's the persistence. And the persistence is an issue because it wears the whole system down. And, as we may have discussed in the past, gas pipelines tend to lose pressure as cold fronts go on. As to your question in history, I mean, the last time I remember something this bad, or probably the worst, was December 22nd, 23rd, 1989, when it was so cold, and it got so cold offshore that natural gas production on offshore platforms froze off. And Southern Natural was hours away from losing pressure to the Atlanta metro area. The fact is that the South, as we can see, doesn't build in the reliability that we build in the North because we experience these kind of events on a regular basis.
So, that being said, obviously it's extremely unique. We kind of learned that, and we're calling this a black swan event. And we know there's a huge demand on the system. If you watch your news right now, you can see that the problems they're having in Texas and so forth are all based on this cold weather event. So let's talk about a technical terms here. We're hearing things through email for certain folks called operational flow orders and constraints. So can you explain both of them and who calls them?
Well, generally, interstate pipelines refer to um, emergency periods or critical periods as operational flow orders. They will issue to producers and transportation customers orders saying, hey, listen, we expect it to be cold. We expect you to put gas into the line to support your nominations. At times, it's an indication that they're going to limit the amount of gas they're going to deliver. The fact of the matter is that there is a differential between the pressures pipelines need to have to fulfill their contracts and the pressures they operate at. As an example, I used to do a lot of work with Tennessee Gas Pipeline. Tennessee Gas Pipeline, their main lines could handle 1,000 pounds of pressure, also known as the maximum allowed operating pressure, or the MAOP. However, their firm contracts were based on having a firm pressure of 550 pounds. That differential between 1,000 and 550 is where interruptible gas comes from. But as I mentioned earlier, as cold persists, their systems aren't designed, the compressors can't keep up with the demand. So those pressures come down and the amount of gas they can deliver comes down. So gradually, as a cold front is in the area, their ability to deliver gas goes down. And that's critical because, again, if you remember earlier, I said the duration has been the big problem because what we generally see with cold fronts is they hit the Midwest and maybe they persist for 3 or 4 days and then they slide off to the east. Well, those are whole different pipelines in the east. So the pipelines here generally, those pressures, when they pump it up near their MAOP, that pressure allows them to maintain and make interruptible deliveries during those 3 or 4 days. And then it slides off to the east and those pipelines pick up the load. But with this front being such a broad front, hitting almost the entire country at the same time, Um, and the duration, that's where the problem came in.
So, given that we have these OFOs, operational flow orders from the interstate system, constraints are on the utility side, and we know that's happened here in Wisconsin. In a general sum, how does this impact clients from what we're seeing? I know it'll be different for folks, but in a general sum, what does that mean for people paying their bill?
Well, when gas pipelines issue OFOs and or the utilities, the Wisconsin utilities issue constraints, the way contracts are structured is that in those periods, the gas suppliers can potentially charge, the daily rate for natural gas. Typically we try to negotiate all contracts to calculate imbalances based on the monthly aggregate imbalance and the monthly average pricing. But again, after We Energy changed their tariffs, a lot of suppliers insisted on changing contracts, so they're not exposed necessarily to these high prices, or they have the capability to pass costs along. So it is possible that some of our customers are going to see higher prices. In fact, let me rephrase that. You will see higher prices. All right, and here's why.
So let's jump on to the next question. And we know that there's been OFOs in place. This is a long cold spell. There's been constraints. We get this. And so we're going to pull up a graph here to look at. It's also attached in this email, which is the daily prices from Chicago Index and Northern Natural Gas Ventura as well. And so can you help us understand, as we look at the graph, what has happened to the price over the last 2 weeks? Help them understand that graph.
Well, obviously, as the cold front came in, prices jumped. We can see the gas started the month trading at 260, 270, barely showing on these graphs now, because the Friday before the President's weekend, when the cold was already starting to hit and everyone was looking at the below zero forecasts, gas in Chicago jumped to 136. And unfortunately, that was a 4-day weekend. So that 136 that was traded on Friday applied to Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, because Monday was a holiday. So Tuesday gas had to trade the Friday before. So you had 4 days where the market price for gas in Chicago was 136. Now, depending on your contact language, you may be exposed to that kind of price for those 4 days. And even if you're not, if you look at the monthly average price and where we expect it to come out for the month of February, if you take 136 and divide it by 28, you're looking at $5 increment per day over 4 days. So those 4 days alone mean that the monthly average is going to be at least 20. And we know from running studies that even if gas were to just drop back to where it was before the start of all this, that you're looking at monthly average cost of gas being above 30. So no matter how you slice it, whether you end up paying potentially a daily price or a monthly price, these prices are going to be substantially higher.
So let me ask you this then: when it comes to the utilities, if you're with the utility company, are they going to experience this financial impact as well? How do you think it's going to look from their angle to consumers?
Well, I go back to the polar vortex. Really, We Energy changed some of their tariff rules, but the way that they pass through gas costs hasn't changed. And the PGA, the Purchase Gas Adjustment, which is how the utilities alternate or vary their prices, hasn't changed. So, and it's a lagging indicator. So the upshot is, if you're on transportation, you're going to get a bill in the start of March for gas that you received in February. And, please be sitting down when you open it. The all probability is it's going to be a big bill. However, even if you have facilities that are on firm transportation with utilities, still with utilities, some of your smaller buildings, you're going to see that they didn't charge a whole lot for February. And that's because they had to establish their price under PSC guidelines before the month started. So the February utility price is actually a price that was established on January 27th. Now here's the kicker. The PSC allows them to recover their costs. So all of these costs that they paid, and they had to buy some of the spot gas because even they can't have enough base gas for these kind of circumstances. So they had to buy some of this gas. Those costs are going to be starting to show up on their March PGA, which will then be on their April bills. But as we've already seen a number of utilities around the country, they're saying, hey, listen, PSC, the numbers are going to be huge. So let us spread that cost not only against the bill they're going to get in April, but May and June and other months. So bottom line is there is no free lunch. People had to pay these prices. The utility also had to pay these prices, and they will eventually wash out. At a minimum, they're going to wash out on the utility bills.
So what I'm understanding is to fully figure out the impact in the comparison between the utility, we're talking several months till we probably get our heads around this.
Right. Again, I use the example of the Vortex of 2014. If you look at what the utilities charged in January and February, it was market. But then after the cold front hit, you can actually see the prices skyrocket for the utilities for March and April and May. They will recover those costs, and those customers who are on utility rate are still going to pay.
So to kind of wrap this up, if people want to learn more, obviously they can reach out to you or myself or anything else. Do you have any suggestions for them in the interim as they still proceed through this month?
Well, there's still going to be a lot of gas priced at monthly average. So even though the cold weather has passed, it would probably be prudent to continue to conserve for the rest of the month, because any overtakes during this cold period will be offset, hopefully, by undertakes for the rest of the month. So, just because the cold weather passes, you may want to consider continuing conservation for the rest of the month to maximize your ability to reduce the impact of these very cold days.
Sounds good. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Feel free to reach out to our email, give us a call to learn more and see how this may impact you, and we can talk you through more of the details.